Hello, Nikki. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about today.
I am delighted to chat with you. I see some folks through social media and meet them, and I feel like, especially the folks that are comfortable doing video content like yourself, like we almost feel like we could just like sit and just take off together. And I want to, shout out to Chris McCabe. She was the one that was like, you really should talk to Nikki. You've really helped her. So I
Oh,
want
I
you to
love her.
know.
She's an absolute rock star.
Yeah, so we're talking about Chris with Life with Grams. I know that many people probably follow. We'll link to her episode too, so that you can listen to Nikki's and then go listen to Chris's too. But we start the show out with words of inspiration, get us kind of in this positive mindset. This is a jar of stuff that I've collected over the years that had really spoke to me and my caregiving and self-care journey. And I made this jar for my sister when we transitioned primary care from myself, of my mom, to my sister Susie, because like that's a lot to give to your sibling and be like, here's mom, now you got the full duty of it. And I was really worried about my sister, that she was going to burn out, because she's a different person than I am. She's
Right.
a nurture, give. And I was like, you need to have some other little voices in your ear so that this can be sustainable. But anyway, that's where this is. So there's an inserts. People can make their jar, their box, their basket, whatever they want with the inserts, and there's also like a refill, because when I used to go visit her, I would load up her jar with more stuff.
Oh, that is the
Yeah.
coolest thing. I love that.
So it's an inexpensive way to help another family caregiver or to do something for yourself. All right, Nikki. So it says, we cannot direct the winds, but we can adjust the sails.
Mm.
What does that say to you? Kind of, cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails.
I think for me, it means that life is going to be what it is. I'm of the concept that life is both brilliant and disturbing. And when I consider that I actually am not just a nomad in the ocean, but I have a bit of control over certain situations, it makes me feel like I am empowered, that life and the wind, the waters, all of it will not overcome me because I do have control over certain things, not everything, but certain things. So that's what
Yeah.
happens to me.
There is power, I think, in knowing about what's in your control and what's outside your control. And, I mentioned to you before, I spoke to a faith community last night and we talked a lot about the serenity prayer. It was like a really powerful thing for me, as far as like, okay, which part of this situation can you take action on, and which part is what it is. And there needs to be some kind of an acceptance there. And I love what you said about life could be two things at once.
Yes.
I know that Chris had been to a brutally beautiful retreat, and I'm an ambassador and a program guide for Brutally Beautiful. But I love that that's their phrase that they use, is like things can be brutal and beautiful at the same time. And it's in that you can really find the good parts of caregiving, right? Like it's not all bad. We learn a lot about ourselves in the process. So with that, I'd love for you to just kind of give us a take us back to, younger than young, where you are now, Nikki, where you were on the road to a budding career in fashion design, and then something happened.
Oh, yeah. So, well, fashion has always been a major character in my family. Both my parents, they grew up having to make their own clothes. So I knew how to sew from a really young age, like about 10, 12 years old. So I went to school for fashion design. And when I finally had my career in fashion, I thought I had made it, like, Mama, I made it. But then my mom got sick. And I was 4 years into my career. I just got promoted, had the corner office, had my own assistant. And I really did think I was doing well. But my person, who was my mom, was not. And my mom and I have always been connected and we were best friends. So in that moment, life just got real. And not to say that it wasn't so real before, but it was more like, I was in my late 20s when my mom got sick. I was 27 and my mom was in her late 50s. And at that time, all I was thinking about was trying to get my money and living in my studio and meeting my friends for drinks and eating burgers. I wasn't thinking about taking care of myself, let alone somebody else. So life really did just get real. It was like ice bucket challenge real.
Yes.
In my face. Yeah.
Yes. So you ended up moving, like ditching your career or choosing, you'd made a choice, right?
Definitely.
To put that on hold. And then what happened?
So I decided to quit my career and I took on the full-time role as my mom's caregiver. And I approached it like I do with a lot of things in my life, which is, oh, Ma, we got this. This ain't nothing. Come on. We're going to be good. What do we need? Like a calendar from Staples? Like, one of them? We're good. We got this. It was not the case. And I was very duped by a lot of other elements, like the health industry at that time. And we're talking about almost 13 years ago. And when my mom was diagnosed, the doctors, the neurologists, they all said the same thing, which was, all right, so we'll see you in 6 months. Bye.
Yeah,
And
you got this.
yeah, like no game plan, no syllabus, nothing.
No outline, nothing.
Nothing. It's just, you're just out there, go and do what you will. And so I was just lost in the caregiving sauce. I had no idea that it was going to take on as much as it did. Now, coincidentally, my mother was a nurse for people with dementia, and she used to come home and tell me all these stories about her patients, and they were usually very gruesome, a lot of violent behavior. Again, she was working in a facility, so it was controlled, but like not really. So when I found out that she had dementia, that's what came in my mind. Like, oh Jesus, okay, so
yes,
what are we gonna do? What's gonna happen? And my mom and I, we shared a lot of similar characteristics. Like, we were both really energetic, had buoyant attitudes, very joyful and cheerful. So when she was diagnosed, she fell into severe depression and she became very angry all the time. So my sister and we were trying to figure out what we could give back to our mom so that she could get her joy back again. And nothing that we tried worked. I know that she loved working with children, so I tried to have her and I work at a daycare center. That was not good. She was overstimulated, and I didn't know that overstimulation is a thing for someone who has a cognitive disease. Also, she really didn't care to engage with a lot of people that she used to in the past. So it was really a very isolating experience. And I wasn't accustomed to that. And I had to start learning about her other senses. And what really helped me was comparing what I was going through with mothers. So I started Googling mommy bloggers and reading a lot of their blogs and what they did with their children under the age of 2, and how they coped with also working a 9 to 5 or having other family members that they had to take care of. And I had so much knowledge and resources just from those mommy bloggers. And that's what I started to implement in my care with my mom. I started to get really organized, very intentional. I started learning about nutrition and health because that had a lot to do with her mood swings, and also with my mood and also with my energy, because I was very depleted. And also I try to engage, like I said, her senses. So instead of just targeting her memory, I targeted her sense of touch, her sense of smell, her sense of sight. So things that would bring or spark the joy is what I really tried to concentrate on. And then I also started looking into interior design because my mom's coordination was off and she was always stumbling or falling down or bouncing into furniture. So when I started looking into interior design, I started to learn about circular furniture and also about hidden in plain sight furniture. So, you know, there's a thing that tends to happen where they like to hoard, you know, like take the TV remote and then say they don't know where it is, they haven't seen it, they haven't touched it, but they actually did. So I found out about like hidden in plain sight furniture. So I started implementing that into our everyday environment. And it really made a difference. Even the sense of smell was something that I had no idea would be so effective, with using lavender and vanilla. My mom was from Trinidad, so using scents that reminded her of the islands, coconut, she started to change for the better. She was a lot calmer. She was more relaxed. And it also was super effective when it came to sundowning as well, changing the lighting so that it wasn't as dark, but more warmer. So it felt like the sun was always on in the house. And just using film on the windows so that she wouldn't get nervous when she saw people walking by. Like there were so many things that I learned on my own. And I think it made me a more confident caregiver because, you know, imposter syndrome was definitely real for me. I had no idea what I was doing. I felt like I was lost in a sauce. But when I finally nailed it, that's when I burnt out.
Oh, because, you know, and then all those things that you're sharing, Nikki, like obviously she's your person, you're all in. I love your expression that you're lost in the caregiving sauce. I've got that in quotes here, but you know, what I'm extracting so far from your story is like, you were very curious and your fashion design, while you might've put your professional stuff on side there, it was definitely having an influence on your day-to-day caregiving with the aesthetics and the senses and all of those things, and seeing how what was going around her was having an impact on you. And you know, the mommy bloggers is fascinating too, because like back then there wasn't caregiving bloggers. Like you started before. I was 2014 when I was started into this caregiving space and blogging about it and so forth, and there just wasn't a lot of people doing it. And I'm grateful for the folks that are really even showing it on screen of what that looks like, so that people can kind of see, yes, dementia can be hard. Being a dementia caregiver can be hard. And it does have moments of joy. And there's a lot of examples of people living well with dementia.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes, but the stuff that you're doing, like this is what I would call intellectual self-care, because you are curious about it. And so then you're going to try it on, just like you try on all your fashions and things to see it, how they look and how they work. You're going to try on some of these tools and these things that you're reading about and learning about.
Yes.
And trying them on. So good for you on that. And
Thank
then
you.
at the same time, like what was going on with your self-care? Like what was happening with, when did you know you were burned out?
Right. So first I gotta say, I felt like such a champion when I won that early stage. I had it down, our routine, like what? Somebody say something to me, because I was so ready. I was ready and prepared and I felt really great. But yeah, how I knew I was going through burnout was I was getting sick a lot. I was having many migraines. My skin was crazy. I was breaking out a lot and I was having a lot of palpitations. And then I wasn't paying attention to myself. See, I was like obsessed with my mom because she was my person. And I didn't think there was anybody better than her. So I always paid very close attention to her. I noticed everything. But with myself, I stopped paying so much attention. So I would be clumsy with my body, you know, and eventually I ended up becoming disabled. I fell and broke both my feet. And you know, usually when I tell people that, they're like, oh my God, it's crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. But I'm really grateful that actually happened, because I needed something that was going to be louder than my own voice to slow me down, because there was no stopping me. I was just like, I don't care if I'm tired. I don't care if I didn't eat. I don't care. I'm going to be there for my mom, but I needed to be slowed down. So breaking both my feet definitely did that. And then
Yeah, it's like, we're
learning how
going to
to,
get your attention. I mean, you can run on adrenaline for a while
oh
and
yes,
like this goodwill, but at a cost, right? Like,
yeah,
um,
definitely.
I've talked sometimes about like, we talk about putting the oxygen mask on ourselves, and that's analogy is fine, but it's like a one-time situation where you're in a crisis. And so for me, I kind of more relate to the nest of hungry birds is what I call it, where you've got all these competing priorities, and you need to nurture yourself so that you
Yeah.
can go out and feed yourself that worm so that you can feed that nest of everybody else. But it does, in your case, it took a drastic wake-up call. Well, how did that change
Yeah.
things for you when you became disabled?
It changed a lot of things, but to your point, I think that the culture of caregiving used to be, because I definitely see it changing now, but I think the culture of caregiving used to be martyrdom. So you had
Yes.
to sacrifice and give of yourself more than how you gave your more than how you nourished yourself. And now the narrative is changing. And I think me breaking both my feet, it was definitely the loud awakening that I needed, but it was also an awakening for my family members and all of the other people involved in the caregiving experience that I was having. Because then they started to see, wait a minute, she can't do it all, because I had been. And
Mm-hmm.
you cannot just do this by yourself. You have to create a care team. And that's what being disabled taught me. That was the first thing that actually had to change, is that I needed to start being more intentional with my own care and to put away the guilt, because there was no room for it. I really didn't even have the luxury to afford it. So, because you know how caregivers get paid. So there you go. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Hopefully in our lifetime that we are not even saying like, in the olden days,
yeah,
caregivers did this and they didn't work because they couldn't work and they didn't earn a dime doing it. Like, hopefully we get to say that there's a different narrative for that.
there is. I think it's definitely changing now, and I'm so excited about where we're headed. So,
Yes.
yeah, so that was the first thing that had to change, is me creating a care team for myself. And again, being disabled kind of helped me to release the feeling of guilt, because I was just like, well, I need it. It's not like I don't need it. My feet are broken. I need a podiatrist. I need a primary care doctor. And since I can't get to the primary doctor, I'm going to need one that's 24/7 that I can get to virtually, telehealth. And I started learning about all of that. And I have such an amazing care team now. I started working with a nutritionist to help me understand my relationship with food, because now that I was going to be sedentary for a while, I was still eating the way I was eating when I wasn't sedentary. So my relationship with food was very toxic. And I didn't understand that me snacking all the time for energy was also me crying out for an emotional strain that I was experiencing. And snacking happens, and oh my God, it's like the worst rabbit hole ever. You just go down, 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 and then you're like, oh, I'm full. I don't need any broccoli, water. No, no, no. Where's my Kit Kat? So it was just really, it was a very transformative moment in my life, becoming disabled. And I also then found out that I had type 2 diabetes.
Mm.
So I really had that wake up call, and I had to be extremely proactive, because diabetes is nothing to play with.
No.
So even though those things happened and they were devastating, I think the brilliant part of it was that it helped me to, one, release guilt, two, to take better care of myself, and three, to be really intentional. And the way my diabetes is set up, yeah, eating poor is going to affect my glucose levels, but stress actually affects my glucose levels even more. So I had to start learning about mindful practices, meditation and breathing exercises. And that might sound like, a trend, like, yeah, you should just breathe, you should just meditate. But let me tell you, when you are running around in circles like a chicken without a head, and trying to catch this person wandering and going through sundowning, you really feel like you don't have space to breathe. I get that. I definitely do. And I see those caregivers who are in that situation. However, there is always space for yourself. And I had to try to carve those space moments, and I made them my mindful moments. So if I was in the bathroom, I'm taking a really long, deep breath. And then I started learning about different breathing exercises that you can do. If you're feeling panicked, you can breathe really fast, sharp, and then slow. When babies are crying, the way that they self-soothe after they're crying, they go,
Yes. Yes.
that's how to
And
help.
my daughter's a NICU nurse. She just told me they have a shushing machine. It just
Yeah.
literally, I'm like, because I was I'm like, she was telling me about a baby that was kind of colicky and so forth. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, so we're, even as a baby, to your point, like we need these things to come. I love that you weave in these mindful moments, and what you've say so many great things. But one of the things that I'm pulling out too is that you didn't just find this time. Like there was no time. You were the chicken with the head cut off, and it's when you need, so that's when you need to try to figure out these breathing moments even more so, because that's not a sustainable way to kind of keep living your life. Like you're on this hamster wheel that just never stops. And so it is about creating the time and not finding the time. If there's someone listening, Nikki, who's like, oh, well, of course she led a life change. She broke her feet and it happened to her. But if someone's listening and is like, I'm burned out, I'm burned out right now. And where do they start?
Well, I love the question. If someone is burnt out right now and they have not broken their feet.
Yeah. We don't recommend that. Yeah.
No, please don't. What I would recommend though, is to start with creating a care team. And care team does not have to be specific to people or organizations. It could also be your technology. So, but let's say we start with the people, right? So on your care team, you want to have a primary care doctor that can make sure that you are staying accountable to your health goals, whether that be, trying to lose some weight or to work on your cholesterol levels, like whatever those health goals are specific to you. I think a nutrition is also a great person to have on your care team as well, because like I mentioned, snacking really happens. And I think the snacking happens because we're so tired all the time and we're just looking for something quick to eat. But when I've been working, what I've learned from working with a nutritionist is that you can meal prep your snacks. I didn't know you could snack prep. I haven't seen that on Pinterest, but
yeah.
Or maybe I'll make one, that's how I felt. So yeah, you can just meal prep your snacks. And that way, when you are in need of that energy boost, you grab some frozen grapes and there you have it. And also another person on your care team, which would be helpful, is maybe a personal trainer. Now, I know at a lot of gym memberships, they do have like, a 1 or 2 day free consult with a personal trainer. You could try for that. Now, let's say you're going to just stick with technology. You can use YouTube to do some workouts, and also working with Amazon Echo to have reminders set up to drink your water, making sure you took your multivitamins. Another great technology that I like to use is my smartwatch, which helps me to move, right? Sometimes I'm just sitting down, and it's always specified to the stage of your person. So in the early stages, my mom was very active and we're walking around, we're moving, this is happening. All right, great. But then as she got to the middle stage, her movement slowed down just a little bit. But then towards the late stages, it slowed down a lot, which meant that I kind of slowed down a little bit as well. And then also, you know, my feet were broken. So I think it's helpful to have technology work in your favor. So you can also set that up if you do wear a smartwatch. Yeah. And so that's what I would do. I would tell them to start there by creating a care team. The second thing I would tell them to do is to learn how to carve space for the mindful practices. So I know one thing for me that I can appreciate is that even though the day would go on with all the shenanigans, at night felt like mine, like I own the night.
Yeah.
But then when it was time to sleep, I was so anxious because I'm like, oh God, tomorrow. It was Sunday scaries every day.
Yes.
So how do I calm down? how do I tell my glucose levels to relax? How do I do it? I use this app called Insight Timer, and it has nighttime meditations. And then Amazon Echo again you can actually ask your assistant. Amazon Echo is the assistant. I can't call her name because she's too nosy.
Yes.
But you can call her name, and let's say it's Ziggy, and you say to her, help me sleep. That's the command. And she will give you some questions like, would you like to sleep through listening to a podcast, an audible, or sleep sounds? And then if you say sleep sounds, she has over 10,000 sleep sounds. Shushing is actually one of the sleep sounds. She also has pink noise, brown noise, white noise. I mean, she has it all.
A spectrum.
So, yeah, a whole range. So that's what I started incorporating to help me to just slow down, and calm myself, enhance my calm.
Yes.
The last thing that I would tell them to do is to learn how to communicate with their support circle. So I'm always saying, like, lean in on your support. And for a lot of people, it is a very individual situation for us all. But I would encourage whoever is listening to know that they are not alone and that support is available. Support might not be shown in the places or even the organizations that we would want it to come from, and that's okay. Support is still available. And research and resources are also available. My favorite resource for caregivers is the library, because it's a lot of free information there. And when I was trying to learn all about dementia and caring for someone who was a whole adult, the library came in handy, and it was like the Robin to me being Batman. It was my sidekick, and I loved it, and I learned a lot.
Was it like books in the library or people that were available? Yeah.
Books. There were books about how to calm your nervous system. There were also information about mindfulness, but in a mobile way. Like, I had no idea about mobile meditation.
Yeah, walking meditations. I'll like, I mean, even like this is going to air long after this event probably happens, but we're like Zentangling, like doing things, doodling, like what we call like fancy doodling. That's a form of meditation.
It is.
There's so many things that I think that even if you try on one thing, like, and you say, oh, this is not for me, there's flavors of it. There's 31 flavors of all these things. So, and then for the library stuff too, like, I know I found it hard to find time to read while I was caregiving, but I discovered that with my library card, I could download books for free from the Libby app.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. So
there's a lot of creative ways to get figured out.
And, support can also come from open forums. It can come from social media platforms, which is one of the reasons why I'm so excited where caregiving is headed right now, because there are caregiver influencers like you and I. So
I call myself an accidental influencer. I was like, oh, wait, this happened.
Most of us are. I think most of us, we didn't go about, I don't think, setting it to be an influencer. I think we were just looking for an outlet to share our story and to not feel so alone, because it is very lonely and isolating, but it doesn't have to be. And I like that we have created our space. We've given ourselves our voice back by sharing our stories and our journey and the education that we have gathered from it to become such a great force for others who are just now joining, and even those who have already been a caregiver for multiple years. Now they're learning new tricks. I remember when I started going to a support group in person, so before the pandemic, and it was filled with a lot of senior citizens, and they looked at me, they were like the mean girls though, and like I couldn't sit on their table, and I was so confused. I'm like, does it matter? What, are y'all ageist? What's going on here?
Yes.
So weird. But anyway, they got over it. And I remember this one incident, this one lady, she was in her 70s, and she was complaining about her mom. and saying that she was just tired all the time. You know, all she wants to do is garden. She's been retired for 20 years, and she thought she would be able to retire and just enjoy her garden. And I was like, well, I'm in my 30s. I thought I was going to be able to work and, you know, go out, travel, do things. And I'm not. I quit my job so that I could care for my person. And she was like, well, all I'm saying is I want my mother to eat the food that I put in front of her. Well, that made me think about people and their perception. And I think you're right. My fashion must have played such a great role in this, because I'm definitely one for how aesthetics are. And when it comes to food, yeah, I want it to look a certain way. And we are all visually stimulated, you know? That's why impressions are so strong. And I just made a suggestion to the lady, like, oh, well, have you tried using action colors like red or blue? Like, what's her favorite color? Why don't you try that and see if she would eat? And the next week she came back and said that she did eat that. And that made me think about other ways that we could incorporate color into the caregiving experience. Like, how do you want to feel? So I focused on my mom first, because, you know, that was just my norm to do. And her favorite color was red. So I made sure that she had red sneakers on. And she was in that moment where she was always wanting to go home, even though she lived with me. So I made sure to put red in every area of the house. I'm not saying it was a red room. No, definitely not that. But accents in red throughout the space. Like, I had red roses on the dining table. I had red curtains in her bedroom. I had red nails on so that she could associate me with someone that she was familiar with. You know, she might not remember that I was her child, but she remembered that she liked and enjoyed looking at that color. So I always wore red lipstick. I always tried to make sure to incorporate red boots in my outfits. And then when it came to my own personal outfits, because the late stages, my mom was bedbound, I was really very emotionally strained and stressed. So I wore colors that would help me calm myself. So I wore a lot of earth tones like beige and browns and olive greens. I wore a lot of whites. I wore a lot of grays, and that helped to soothe me and calm me so much. So I would also encourage caregivers to pay attention to color. Color has a huge impact on this entire experience and even our own stimulation.
Yeah, I mean, such a great topic that we have never, you know, addressed before on the show about about that. And it makes total sense. And then the power of a support group where, and I'm so glad you kept going, because what a gift you were to them, and vice versa, hopefully. But in that, you know, we can gain some of the best advice, I think, comes from other family caregivers. Actually,
Definitely.
not some, pretty much all the
Yeah.
great advice comes from family caregivers who are living in the trenches, which is why, you know, this podcast only focuses on people who are current or former family caregivers. You know, you're a beautiful, if nobody's watching YouTube, like, Nikki is a beautiful woman, but, and, you know, you know, I know that maybe it was Chris's episode, she commented on like how you've inspired her to put her face on and things like that. Why is that important?
Well, it has a psychological effect on us, because a lot of times, you know, I think I had mentioned that we have created a platform where we've given ourselves back our voice. And again, leaning in on how the culture of caregiving used to be, we were stripped of our voice, because you're not supposed to complain. You're not supposed to say that you got to sacrifice and you're tired and you're hungry. No, nobody cares. Nobody wants to know how you're doing. How's your person doing? Right. And since we didn't have a voice, there were those little moments where our voice showed up in different ways, like in how we dressed, how we woke up and showed up for ourselves. I know that there was a moment where it was during the pandemic, actually, because I had my mom and I on a routine. We would go out on certain days. Like, one day it's just grocery shopping all day, farmers market, you know, all that thing. And then the next day it's just the library all day. Like, we always had something to do. But then when the pandemic came, it was like, so just these four walls and us? That's it? and I stopped dressing up. I stopped wearing makeup. I'm not saying you got to put a full beat on, no, but I just stopped showing up for myself. I stopped caring. And that is the sign. That's the sign that we're not using our voice to say that we are in need of something. That something could be respite. That something could be a nap. That something could just mean whatever it is for you. So that's why I started to wake up from that and started showing up for myself. I started being more in touch with my humanity. If I was going to feel sad, I let myself have that feeling. If I was feeling frustrated, I allowed myself the space to be frustrated. And I did it in healthy outlets. Back in the days when I first started, I didn't know about healthy outlets. I only thought, like, again, we just had to keep our mouth shut and not share about what we were going through. But after I started reading more and learning more about feelings and emotions and how they impact our overall well-being, I started to really implement those healthy practices, those healthy outlets like mindful meditation. I started coloring, adulting, and giving myself, my inner child, the room to play and enjoy that. And also learning about the sensory of touch. When you can go and take a shower and use that body wash to connect skin to skin contact, that does something. Even when you are meditating, and let's say you have a busy day and your person is just going off, you could put your hand over your heart and it's the equivalent of giving yourself a hug. I had no idea. And that also calms your nervous system.
It doesn't take long. I mean, I think that's the powerful thing of what you're saying in this, Nikki, is like, I will challenge people all day long that say they don't have time for self-care, because
you do.
You do. And if you don't have time for wellness, then you're probably going to have to make time for illness. And
I love that.
I would rather be well, right? Like, have that be true. So I think it's very accessible and attainable, but I do think it's a little bit of, it's a mindset shift it's a big mindset shift of you deserve it. You deserve to be, to live a happy and healthy life, and believe in your heart that two things can be true at the same time. That you are does not mean that you're not a terrific caregiver. Your mother, I'm sure she, speaking as a mother, would want you to have done that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember though, when I did have a doctor, when I first became disabled, and they shamed me. They said, well, wouldn't your mother want you to be doing well? And the way that they said it really made me revert back to those toxic outlets,
that was a guilty way of,
right. Because my mother would want me to show up for myself, but she would also want me to have the correct type of care. And the correct type of care looks like an empathetic doctor. It looks like someone who understands not just your ailments, but also your lifestyle, because that has a lot to do with how you show up and care for yourself. If you're constantly depleted and don't have the right respite working for you, then of course your health is going to decline a bit. So how can the doctor show up for you? This is where communication helps. It helps to write things down and to come with a full understanding that you are in control of how you experience things in life, because you can communicate. And they are human just like you are. It behooves us to learn about our bodies and about our person's bodies and to communicate that. Communicate. Yes. There's nothing.
What would happen if we all started kind of just using our words and really and making changes there? Yeah, so much of it is about that. Tell us, like, so sadly mom is deceased.
Yes.
And you've now are into your life after caregiving ends. Tell us about, and once you're a caregiver, you're always a caregiver though, for sure. Like it's just part of who you are. But what are you doing these days? How are you helping the care economy? What do you do to help? How do you make a living? Like, how can people help and learn more about you too?
So life after caregiving, it looks still a little bit like how it was before, except obviously my person isn't here. But what is similar is that I'm still showing up in the social media platforms for caregivers and helping them to learn, practice wellness every day. Like you had mentioned, you know, we are deserving. So I just show up online to help encourage other caregivers on how they are showing up for themselves, but in a full capacity, you know, so not just eating well, but their fitness needs and their fashionable, sustainable ways to remain in control of their wellness. And I am also a brand strategist. So I do work with small businesses, and I work in the wellness industry specifically for GoodRx. And that's
Nice.
yeah, that's really fun. I absolutely love them.
GoodRx is, for those that aren't familiar, it's a way that you can kind of search your prescriptions and find the pricing like proactively in your area.
Yeah, and
So,
even for pets too. So
oh, good to know. Good to know. Well,
yeah, they're
we'll link to
phenomenal.
that. So, but you are willing to take other clients.
Oh,
And
absolutely. I'm
yeah.
always ready. More the
Okay.
merrier.
Yeah. So we'll share your all that stuff at the end, but let's jump into the Just For You journal. So I picked out some prompts for you for our lightning round, and I know that these are going to be good.
Remember,
So,
you said no wrong answers.
no wrong answers
Okay.
here. Okay, you talked about the snacking and stuff, and making some serious changes, but what's one of your favorite, and it doesn't have to be food related, but what's one of your favorite indulgences? Something you feel like you've been successful in, like you feel like you're indulging in something.
Oh, I got too many, but they're
Oh.
healthy, I promise. So one of my favorite indulgences are smoothies, because even though you can load it up with lots of veggies like spinach and kale and the fruit, oh my God, I use this protein powder that's chocolate. And when I'm on my, you know, my monthly.
What is it? What is
it? Feels like such a delicacy. Oh shoot, what's it called? Orgain. It's called Orgain.
Orgain. I've seen it at Costco, in fact. Okay. I'll link to that.
I absolutely love it. I have vanilla and I have chocolate, and it is everything.
I'm a smoothie girl, so I get it. And for caregivers, that's a great way to
to stay on top
energize
of
it.
your nutrition. Yeah, exactly. Because it's fruits and veggies, guys, and protein. Okay. My second indulgence is tea. My mom and I, we used to bond and connect over tea. Like we would sit, make tea, and then just talk for hours. So I still do that, but I go hard. Like I have these cute little tea diffusers. I have one that's a robot, so I'll get like my herbal tea and I'll put it in there. Or I have these flower tea, so they look like a little
Yeah,
bomb.
I have that. The blooming, the little glass one. Yes.
And I absolutely love that. So that's an indulgence for me. And I am, again, all about the aesthetics. So I have these little honey, I don't even know what you call them, but they're like the dippers.
The
And I get
stir things.
Yes. And I also indulge on my glassware when I'm drinking my tea. And when it comes to coffee, I still love coffee, but I do an organic coffee. It's a mushroom coffee, and it tastes really good. I mean, it does give me back that energy. Obviously, it doesn't taste like the actual coffee. I totally indulge on it, and it's amazing. So yeah, those. Oh. And my last indulgence is this yogurt. It's like a Oreo yogurt. I don't know, Yoplait.
Okay. I'll have
It's
to
like
look for
vanilla
that one.
yogurt, and then it has the Oreo crumbles. I'll
Yeah.
do that when I'm on my monthly, because you know chocolate is like my biggest thing.
Yes. I'm a yogurt parfait girl. So I like a Greek yogurt with probably grain-free granola usually.
Oh,
And then
yes.
a fresh fruit like berries, or I have some amazing organic strawberries in my fridge. That's going to be my healthy snack
Yeah.
later today.
You know what makes me want to continue eating healthy is when it looks nice. So, you know, I could have just had a glass of water in a regular cup, but I chose to do things that are going to stimulate me and my senses. Blue stands for healing and health. So I know that wellness is always a part of who I am, because that will never, ever leave me. It's definitely ingrained into my characteristics. So I still try to maintain colors in what I'm doing every day, and food included.
Yes. there's a lot of rich content in that color stuff. I'm interested. I don't know if you've read Gretchen Rubin. Do you know her? She's from the Happier podcast, which I was a faithful listener to, and she wrote Happier at Home and stuff, but she wrote a book. I think she published it about color, and I'll find it and I'll send it to you and I'll link to it.
I would love to read it.
But because she went down this whole like wormhole about exploring color. So I think you may enjoy that.
Color psychology is so impactful. Yeah.
Yes, so true. And your signature color. My signature color is turquoise. So I'm very attracted to your necklace today.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you. My signature color is actually black. I have been changing, though. I have been becoming more soft. I think that's what has changed with life after being a caregiver, is that I'm becoming softer. I used to be so protective over my mom, so I was very guarded with my own emotions and with protecting hers. But now I'm starting to feel strength in being soft. So I've been wearing a lot more pinks and grays, just being flirtatious with my silhouettes. And I like that. And what else has changed with life after being a caregiver is giving myself full permission to take up space, like have full autonomy of my life, to not really be responsible for anyone else. And that was hard, because caregiver PTSD is a thing. And with the people that were in my life at a certain time, I always felt like I had to care for them. Like you had mentioned, once a caregiver, always a caregiver, but to what end, right? And one thing I learned from my therapist, who is a part of my care team, is that it is not my responsibility to care for someone who is in their full capacity to care for themselves.
Exactly. Well, they always need to, that's part of their OT, PT, and it's enabling. I mean, yes, all that for sure. I think it is important to have some healthy boundaries there. And going back to the softer colors and things, like one of the things I'm really enjoying now is like, I'm a pretty practical gal when it comes to like dressing. How many times am I going to wear that? Am I going to get my money's worth? I'm always at the sale rack, that kind of thing. But I'm having so much fun with Nuuly, Nuuly.
Oh, I love it. I'm here for Nuuly. I'm here for Nuuly. Yes.
So it's like renting clothes that I get to pick out, because I've tried Stitch Fix before, but like I miss shopping. Like I want to pick the stuff out. So with Nuuly, I can pick out my 6 items a month, and it's like a little under $100. I think.
Fabulous, miss.
But it's so fun. And I would say 5 of them out of 6, like if I feel great in them, and it's helping me, as a speaker, like I don't always want to wear the same thing over and over and over again. So it's like, oh, like last night, my dress, this had its moment, and now it goes back and I send it back dirty. That's another beautiful thing. You don't have to wash them.
I love
send those dirty clothes back, and I can't wait to pick out my next 6. So that will happen. That'll happen tonight. That's going to be my fun little me time, is picking out my. So I'll drop the link to that in, because I think it's a great way for people to explore, like being bold and trying different things.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're not really sure of your style, it's a really great way to kind of figure it out. Or if you have life events happening, like a graduation, or you're between sizes, you're working on stuff, and it's like, it's amazing. Okay, let's get back one more time. I could talk to you all day, darn it. Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. Looking ahead to your to-do list, this week may be overwhelming. How do you make it more manageable? So I would like to refer to something that I heard you say when you did a LinkedIn Live about caregivers are the best employees. We are gangsters, okay? Because we can take on a lot of pressure, but never look like we are. I mean, we're diamonds, but we can handle a lot. And I think it comes from being super organized. We know what time our person needs to have their medication. We know if they may be acting different. Is that a UTI? What is going on there? We are always observant. We are always on top of things, right? And we put that standard on ourselves. So what do I do when I have a full week and I need to learn how to manage myself? I stay organized. I schedule everything and I use everything around me to help me be proactive. Like I use Amazon Echo on a regular. I have my Google Calendar. I use my Apple Watch, and I try to make sure that I implement moments where I can have my well-being. Like even my dog is set up to schedule himself to wake me up to go give him a walk. So I just try to make sure to stay as organized as possible. Now, when it happens that even with a schedule, curveballs come, what do? I remain calm. And I once worked a job where it was very busy all the time. And when they would give us curveballs, which is like, you know, the president of VP would come and say, hey, I need this now. So stop all the 10 things you're doing. I learned how to pivot. And I think being caregivers, we learn how to pivot as well. So yeah, I pivot. I stay organized and I pivot.
Yes, yes, yes. And give yourself lots of grace too. Well, Nikki, tell people, how do they stay in touch with you? Like where is a good place to send people so that they're like, I want more of what she's having. Like, where do they go?
I love that movie. So they can find me on social media. I am on Instagram. I am on X, which used to be Twitter, and also on TikTok. And you can find me at a log cabin in Brooklyn. I'm also on Facebook, and I do have a virtual support group on Facebook as well. For anyone who is looking to connect and to share just their stories or to find support, you can find me there. And I do have a website as well. So you can also find me there. Oh, and obviously on GoodRx. So you can just put in my name, Nikki Nurse, and you'll find me.
Nice, nice. Well, Nikki, lovely chatting with you today. I'm so excited that it's not going to be Parting is Such Sweet Sorrow, because I can pull up my social media and I can feel like I'm chatting with you there. So thank you so much for just being vulnerable, being willing to share your story, finding the good stuff, the diamonds in the rough, and really making them shine and sparkle, and showing other people, I think, the hope that this is possible, that it is possible to come out even better, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, you know?
Ooh, okay.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you for making space for this conversation. I appreciate you, and for creating such a safe place for us caregivers to be seen and to be heard. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. So thank you.
My pleasure.